Welcome everybody to the Kid Casper Podcast. I'm your gracious, beautiful, blessed, beloved, and black host, the kid they call Casper. The KID in Kid Casper stands for King of Development. I'm that menace with the melanin. Reject me as I am, as long as he is still relevant. First off, I just want to say thank you for the few people that I've reached out to over the course of just today. I would say my mom is at the hospital with my little older brother, because most people are shorter than me, you know what I'm saying? Vertically, they're smaller than me, but he's older than me and everything like that. He seems to be okay. He's got this mean stank face on his face. For those that know, and for people that have been following me for years, I have a older brother named Larry, where he's like 35 years old, but intellectually he's about like 3. Basically, traumatic brain injury and everything like that. Loves people to sing Itsy Bitsy Spider. So I just want to say, Larry and Mom, if you're watching this right now, I love you guys. Mom, please keep your head up. I'll look after the dogs in case you have to make an overnight visit or anything like that. And we're just gonna keep lifting you up in prayer. I see a couple of my people in the comment section already. I see Tyler from from California. I see Auntie Tamisha in Brooklyn, and I got my sister Eb in Virginia. You know what I'm saying? I have a couple of interesting things to get into today, but we're just gonna drop the intro real quick. If this is your first time tuning in today, hello. The kids call me Casper, the Christian rapper / activist. I call myself a raptivist. Yes, I said raptivist, rapper / activist. I love Jesus, but I'm far from a pacifist. I'm a leader of this interfaith coalition in the state of Maryland that is fighting for change within the system. Education reform. We are working on reforming the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. We got some stuff to do. We got some good trouble to get into and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? I see my sister Maya made it to the party in the comment section. I don't know where everybody else is watching this from, but the YouTube chat's pretty lit. You know what I'm saying? You get to meet some dope people. Also, if y'all get on some foolishness, it's pretty much the only place I have moderators. And either way, if you get stupid, you're going to get blocked. So hopefully everybody behaves themselves. We're going to get into some not so much heavy topics. I mean, this will go however it really wants to go. But what's up, Carolina Castillo? You must be new to the channel. Thank you for checking this out. Praise the Lord. Yes, my brother, everything seems to be well. It was just a quick scare. I was running around and everything today. Piggybacking off of what my sister Maya said, let us know where you're watching this from. And if you could do me a favor, like this video, share this video with some people. Hopefully this is edifying, educational, and inspirational to some. But anyway, y'all, I was in the middle of first time. That's what's up. And yeah, like I'm saying. So that's what's up, man. So I was on a podcast last week. I was doing my own podcast, and I had this gentleman on here, and he was just sharing some of his thoughts and everything like that. And I was just very intrigued by some of this stuff. Some of the things that he was dropping, just gems and everything like that, from talking about theology, the Black experience, giving a little bit about his story. And I met this gentleman through the internet. Mama told me not to talk to strangers. I didn't listen. And we're in a pandemic. So what else are we supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? I was believing in socially distancing before this pandemic. I am an introvert. I don't really like, being around people. My dog is smothering my leg right now because there is a storm going on outside and he sheds like a white girl in a windstorm. That's besides the point. Anyway, guys, I just want to I want to introduce to the stage today, to the screen. I call him Uncle Rudy Moore from, I think you guys are in Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. You guys are out in Brooklyn, correct? You guys are in Brooklyn?
Well, we're from Brooklyn originally, but we relocated to New Jersey.
Oh man, you once from Brooklyn, always from Brooklyn. So in my eyes, y'all always in Brooklyn. But anyway, brother, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh man, I'm blessed to be here. Just blessed to be here. Amen.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Amen. So I had you on here briefly and we talk off camera, meaning like we talk offline and everything like that. So this is usually where I give people the opportunity to tell them a little bit about themselves. So tell us about, tell us very briefly. We'll get into the questions and everything but if you could like give a quick little summary about who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like you could name what zodiac sign you are, not like that has anything to do with anything, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Cool. Well, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the first generation American of 2 Barbadian parents and of Barbadian heritage. I am married for 29 years.
Okay.
My wife and I, we met. Food kept us together.
You said food kept y'all together?
Food kept us. That's how we met, with food, and that's what keep us going. I met my wife at McDonald's back in 1992, Martin Luther King birthday. And I had a coupon for a chicken sandwich, and my wife was working behind, like near the French fry station. And she just caught my eyes. And her coworker said, "Yo, that dude is staring at you. You better go get yours." We talked. I gave her my phone number. We went out that same night. We went to see Juice, and we went to have a pasta dinner. We talked some more, and like the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and then 6 months later, we're married, and we're living this life. And she's a lover of Christ. I'm a lover of Christ. And praise God, this is it. This is who we are right now.
All righty. And I got it. And you've seen the podcast before, so you know what question is coming up next.
Gotcha.
If you had to name a favorite Disney princess, what would your favorite Disney princess be?
Actually, it's The Little Mermaid. That was the one movie I enjoyed. Ariel, yes. The soundtrack got me. The music, her voice.
That's wild. That's interesting. I thought it was kind of crazy for her to be given her legs to stand on. She had to lose her voice to meet the man that she loves or longed for. I thought that was nuts. I was like, there's a lot of misogyny that plays into this movie.
If you talk about misogyny, if you go way back into time, our world has always been entrenched in misogyny, where women have been literally traded for like land, cattle. And that's why a lot of people of certain stature, high level stature, I'll call them, had lots of concubines. And they always had a concubine from especially exotic looking women from different regions of the world. So when it came time to trade and barter, maybe for expansion of a kingdom or land or something you have that I need, I will offer you, 15 women that you like, oh, wow, this one's from Asia, this one's from Africa, this one's from wherever. And it was very customary for men to do that. So I think over time, that even in that Walt Disney movie, we seen that there. And unfortunately, still women are still killing themselves to please men by appearance. But I would say now today they have the upper hand in this case, because they're the ones who, and it's a good thing in a good way, they have pushed misogyny aside. Because can you imagine 50 years ago, your grandmother may have been working in an office and she had to fend off her boss. It's either sleep with me or be on the U line tomorrow. So, thank God times have changed.
Yeah, I agree. And you might surprise me. The reason why I wanted to interview you is because any assumption I could have, I they got debunked. So with my next opening question, if you might just surprise me. If you had to pick a starter 6 Pokemon, meaning like 6 Pokemon that you would have as a Pokemon trainer, wow. I don't know. You might have an answer for me. I don't know. What 6 Pokemon would they be?
Number 1 is Charizard.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, Pikachu. Squirtle. What's my guy? He used to make the smoke. He was like a rock guy.
Oh, I forgot his name.
He was a rock guy, but he would make smoke, like dark smoke.
He was with the Rockets.
I'm gonna go Jigglypuff. You cannot exclude Jigglypuff.
What is happening right now?
That's number 5. And you know what? I'm gonna go one bad guy, Meowth.
Meowth. Okay. Meowth. I mean, like, if you want a Pokemon that talk as much as the donkey off of Shrek and Chris Tucker off of Rush Hour, go ahead. Like, I understand.
His superpower is just talking you to death.
Wow. Surprise me. Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you, Tyler. I'm right there with you, Tyler. Uncle Rudy and Aunt Tamisha surprise me all the time. Literally all the time. That's why we're here today, guys.
Amen.
And you know, it's funny how, like, even though that you guys have just, I would say, like, come into my orbit as of recently where we talk more and everything like that. So just to give like a little bit of the backstory of how you guys came to meet me, tell us about that. And then even talk about what we've established, or what I've established as far as like the online community group. How has that been for you guys so far? I mean, like, you guys are kind of new to the divinity space, but talk a little bit about meeting me, even though on screen, but also just being engaged with this online family we've established.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to all the ministries that we have found online, to my wife Tamisha, because God just leads her to these people, and they do benefit us. One of the first people she found was Roy Dockery, Pastor Roy, and then it led to Ruslan, and then somewhere in the midst we heard Kid Casper, and we started listening to you, and I was like, who's this Casper person she keep listening to, And I'm listening, and it's way, way different. And it's like a lounge is the only way I can explain. It's like a lounge. The atmosphere that you present on your podcast and then your talks are like a lounge. And then from there, we're just listening to she was listening to something last week. And I just had to chime in and say, hey, that's that guy Casper, right? And I just chimed in. And that's when I started dropping a little bit of nuggets and stuff. And from there, here we are today.
Yeah, it's the public don't really know about this, but we were sitting in like and shout out to Pastor Roy, by the way, for connecting all of us together and everything like that. We were in a Zoom meeting. We were in like the Savage Truth Community Zoom meeting, and I think we were just about to wrap up and everything like that. And something compelled me in my spirit. Most of the people, if not everybody that was in this Zoom call, with the exception of Eddie. Eddie's our token white boy, essentially. But something compelled me to just ask everybody, how is everybody doing after the trial? You know what I mean? The Derek Chauvin trial. And it went from, it was supposed to end at 10:30. You know what I'm saying? I was talking to you and your wife and a couple of other of our my brothers and sisters in divinity. We were talking to you guys till like 2:30 in the morning until I was just like, all right, guys, I'm exhausted. I need to go to bed. I got meetings in the morning, but this was great. But it's just funny how just me, I guess, like, and I try not to take all the credit, but like I said, something just compelled me to kind of just ask the question. But it's funny how me just diving in head first opened the space for conversation where we were all just able to like minister to one another and just talk to one another and everything like that. I thought that was beautiful. And like, you know, once again, had you on the podcast last week, you debuted on the podcast, on a group podcast, and you said a couple of things. I was like, now he ain't gonna just say that and act like he ain't just say that. I'm like, I was asking you, I was interrupting my own self. I was like, sir, you know you're getting interviewed on here. Like, you know you're getting an interview next week, right?
Hey, man.
But yeah, man. So I guess, and I'm learning as this too. So I always take the time, and not to say I don't appreciate my monitors are over here, but like my camera's right here. But not that I don't appreciate the people that are over here that are watching and everything like that. But this also gives me the opportunity to learn a little bit about you too. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, like, you know, upbringing, everything like that. Like if as far back as you can remember, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah. Well, growing up in a traditional Caribbean family, we were very conservative. That's how we grew up. Mom, dad, granny and granddaddy, auntie, uncles, cousins. We were the epitome of it takes a village to raise a child, and everyone was involved in someone's child's life. So whatever my mom and dad believe in, it was supported by my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents. So we were all on the same page. I would say I was a little sheltered. I wasn't like most, in this case, most Black kids, because when my parents came here from Barbados, it was a different way of viewing life. Like here in America, children have an opinion that they could tell to their parents. Back then, the 80s, it was like, you're not going to speak back to the parent. Whatever the parent says goes, and that's it. And I have a very funny story about that one. Just remind me to tell you, my dad told me one day. So growing up that way, very conservative, education first, you know, do your best in school. Me, mom, dad, and sister. And, you know, you would never believe that we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment for several years because the way we kept ourselves, you know, presentable, clean. Back in the 80s and 70s, a lot of Black kids had trouble keeping themselves clean. You know, they came from maybe a poor environment, an environment that's troubling, which we hear a lot more today. My sister could never say that my dad touched her in the wrong way. We can never say, my dad never lost his temper to the point of injuring my mom or injuring us. So we grew up in a very safe household. I oftentimes tell people that if we were ever on the verge of having the electricity cut off, we never knew. The electricity was always on. The fridge was always full. So I lived a very good childhood. In fact, just up to today, my sister and I, we were texting each other and we were reminiscing about something from our childhood. And our childhood is always humorous. And that was one of the things that we love about our childhood. Other than that, you know, just growing up, going to school, being a good kid, nothing so special or fancy. In school, I was a borderline kid. I wasn't the smartest kid in the school. So I needed a little extra help. And that's just because my mind was always in the stars. I would, while in school, I would always be in fantasy mode. And I think I enjoyed learning new things, but I was always in fantasy mode. Like I was always doodling. One time in the 3rd grade when we had like PSAT test kind of thing, which was called Citywide back in the day, they had these booklets we had to write our name in. And I remember in the 3rd grade, I was drawing little cars and fire engines on the bottom of the page. For each page I flipped over. And it's just funny. That's just how it was in my brain, you know. Going to junior high school, I developed a hobby of action figures, G.I. Joe. That led me to become a military enthusiast. I think I had it in me before G.I. Joe in 1977, 78, when Jimmy Carter was the president and Ronald Reagan came up behind him and he assisted with getting some U.S. hostages free because he threatened military action of some kind. Jimmy Carter lost the election. President Reagan came in. He was known as a military president. And from there, I'm going to assume that my military interest took off then. I'm having that hobby, going through school, just being a military enthusiast. Then I started picking up the hobby of sharp weapons, knives, bladed stuff. That's my hobby. What do you call those martial art weapons? Nunchucks, spears, throwing stars, shurikens.
Okay.
So that was junior high school. And speaking of junior high school, one day my friend and I in the 8th grade, we went to Prospect Park because we had an issue in school. So one thing, a person who knows me, like know me, knows I cannot stand bullying. You, in my flesh, you will meet your grave for bullying. So in the 8th grade, we were in a class. Again, me being in my fantasy world, I was in a borderline class. So we were in between 7th grade and 8th grade. And we had to do stellar in order to be promoted to go to high school. There was a group of guys, like maybe 5, 6 guys that would terrorize almost every teacher we went to every period. And they used to terrorize this one teacher named Miss Stewart. She was our social studies class. And because she was very passive, I think she was the only white teacher we had. Blonde hair, short, maybe 5'5", maybe 5'4" back then. And they would throw spitballs, paper, and everything at her when she turns her back to write on the board. So one day she threatened the class that she knows that we're borderline. And if we do it one more time, she's going to write the letter to the assistant principal and we'll all be held back and go back to the 7th grade. I remember my friend and I, his name is Anthony, we got together and said, yo, we can go back. Especially me. In the 3rd grade, I was held back because I came from Catholic school into the New York City public school system.
I'm so sorry.
You know, for real, listen, for real. I got held back and I had to repeat the 3rd grade. So I was not going to do that again for the 8th grade. Absolutely zero. So after that class, these 5 guys, I told my friend, I said, yo, listen, we got to do something. He said, yo, let's talk to them. So in his mind, he said, hey, let's talk to them. In my mind, yo, let's talk to them. That's me. So we confront them and they're taking us like, what? Please. And
if I could ask, what were you working with back in the day? Like, what was your build? Like you saying, let's talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you had to give me like a build, like height, weight, benching? What was you doing back in the day that you were just like you were the enforcer? Like, what were we working with back in the day in your prime youth?
As my father would say, and what he told me, I was working with this. Whatever the imagination can create, the body can make it happen. And my father was that kind of guy. And my father spoke to me one time. One time I came home crying from school, going back to like the 2nd grade. I was like, Daddy, this guy beat me up. And he said, oh, yeah, that's what's happening in school. Let me see this guy. So my father came up to the school and he stood across the street. And he was like, point out who did it. I said, that guy. He's like, I said, yeah, that guy. My father got into the car. And I'm thinking, okay, Dad's like, yo, he going to work his magic. He drove off. He didn't speak to me. And I said, like 3 blocks later, he said, listen, that dude is shorter than you. You see, he said, don't you ever call me up to the school for nothing like that again. He said, you better learn to fight. I said, but Dad, how? He said, you got hands, you got teeth, you got feet. Use them. I said, okay.
Teeth? Like, good God.
Yeah.
Like
Before Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, Dad was that dude.
he was
So,
that. He was like, look, he said we couldn't agree on war terms to keep us out of this fight. So whatever you gotta do to win the war in this fight, I mean, hey, get it done.
yeah, so that's what it was. So now fast forward now to the 8th grade, and these 5 guys, I'm still growing, so I'm gonna say about 5'6", because I'm 5'8" now. The tallest dude was roughly back then, say 6 feet. Big dude back then, maybe $150, $180 for a junior high school person, and other guys, all average.
Junior high.
This
What the
is
hell was y'all? What the hell were y'all eating? What were y'all eating, kids?
Hamburgers
Like
and milk. The school lunch.
y'all was eating batteries and kids. My God, like that's crazy.
So this one too. So when they were like dismissing us, I guess it showed in my face, and I stepped to the person who it was his name, the tallest guy. Let's call him D. Because he's still alive today, and I don't have to like, oh shoot, you talking about me? Because I saw him in our adult life, but I didn't say hello to him. And I stepped up there and I said, "What you gotta say?" And my friends look at me like, "Oh wait, hold on, we're supposed to be talking." So the other guys, they're coming like close, like to surround me. I said, "Good, please throw the first punch. I want you guys to throw the first punch because you don't know who I am." I said, "Today, everyone believe it in our body bag. And I will take pleasure telling the court that I did it. And I'll spit in the face of whoever." That's me, whatever age the 8th grade is, 14 years old, 14. Because I was not going to be left back. And I spoke and I said, if you guys bother that teacher one more time, you'll answer to me. They walked away.
I bet they did.
All anyone did under their breath, man, you crazy. So my friend, he's like, I don't know if that went well, this and that. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. So I told him, listen, I'm going to be straight up with you. I got left back in the 3rd grade. I'm not doing that twice. I'd rather die before I get left back. That's how mad serious it was to me. We went, started talking about let's practice karate and stuff. So we'll go to Prospect Park twice a week. That's a big park in Brooklyn. And we would do little karate moves and stuff like that. I was very clumsy. I'm not a finesse kind of fighter. I grab you, just my father said, you use your weight against them and use your force that comes down on them. And that's the way I have done it. I thank God I was never into too many fights. I just use diplomacy first. But of course, if you don't want diplomacy, then you'll catch these hands. You know what I'm saying? Truth is truth. One day just in school, because the way I spoke in school, people made fun of me because they say, "Oh, where you're from?" I said, "Well, I'm born in Brooklyn." "You ain't from Brooklyn. You have an accent. Where's your family from?" "From Barbados." "Oh," and they made fun of my Caribbean accent. They made fun of my proper dress. I'm the type of kid that came in school maybe one Monday and Wednesday. I come in a shirt and tie. Public school. We don't need to do that, but that's the way I felt comfortable coming to school. So sometimes the kids would pick at me, So I said, okay, no problem. So I see how this is going. There was one kid, another bully, who felt the wrath. We were coming from gym. So, we had lockers in the locker room. And this one was in the 7th grade this time. This was in the 7th grade. And as I'm changing my clothes, he pops me across my back underneath my arm with a wet towel. I say, yo, Jay, stop. If I'm putting on my pants, he popped me again. I say, yo, Jay, man, stop. So I throw on my shirt fast enough so I won't get hit again. As I'm, turning the combination lock, I get popped one more time back in my head. Same wet towel. I don't say nothing this time. Because the way I lived, because I was the quiet kid, because I was a kid who looked like an easy target, I was the one who carried, and I'm going to get into that that story to how that came about. I took an extra padlock. I'm one of those people that carry two of everything sometimes, like Batman,
Gotcha.
always fully prepared, my utility belt. And I put my padlock with the hook facing out like a brass knuckle. So we're waiting at the door, waiting for the bell to go off to go to the next class. So I just walk up very quietly behind him as he's talking to his friend. And I take my padlock and just down his spine. He was like this. He wanted to cry, but no sound came out. The adult school monitor was like, "Oh my God, what do you do? What's wrong with you?" And I explained what was the problem. And back then, when you are in a school where it's lawless, I was one who I took matters into my own hand. Because when you tell the teacher what's going on, they just move you. They never move the kid who's a troublemaker. They never do nothing to the troublemaker. You're always the one single out. Oh, let's move you around, move you to the front. I'm happy being by the window. Why have to move to the front because the bad kid is being bad? Why am I being punished? Move the bad kid to the front so you can keep an eye on him. Don't move me from my comfortable position. So I was always one from that age that said, you guys are part of the problem because, the teachers and the principal, they didn't do nothing to the bad kids. And the good kids always had to suffer in fear. Getting the lunch money taken from them, maybe get their book bags thrown into the street. And I was one like, not going to happen to me. So that same kid named Jay, who I came down on him, maybe a couple of days later, because he didn't show up to school. And my home was walking distance, a few blocks away from the house. And because, everyone knew which route I took, back then I wasn't like changing my routes as we would now as adults.
Right.
So these three guys come up and say, yo, we heard that you did something to Jay, man. This and that. What was that all about? So these three guys, one of the guys was his cousin. So they got me surrounded, one guy here, and the other guy here. So I turn around and look behind me. Hiding behind the car is Jay. I say, wow, 3 men on 1 man. And, back then I walked strapped, knife, dog chain.
You just say, look, you said I walked around strapped. My mind immediately
he got a 22
pocket. I was like, this man got the 22 with the hollow tips. He's like, I'm not playing with y'all today. Do you understand me? Like,
so I had that on me. They didn't know what I had on me. My father became concerned one time because he saw the dog chain with the padlock. I'll get to that, why he became concerned. So they didn't know what I had on me. I just kept my hands in my pocket, and I just told the dude who was standing from me, and the three of them had me surrounded, and Jay back there hiding behind a car. I told him, why don't you come out? Why don't you come out? You're scared? So his cousin said, no, you talk to me. I said, listen, I'm going to say this. I never turn my back on someone I'm afraid of, and I walked right between them and made it home. No incident. That's just the way I grew up. That's the way my father grew me up. And, some people say that's hypermasculinity or whatever, but I believe a young boy should be able to defend himself. Because when we become men, the Bible tells us we have to defend our wives, right? As husbands, we're supposed to love our wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for the church also. So before knowing that verse, that's what I was doing. Now, the reason why my dad became concerned about me walking with a padlock with a dog chain on it, he didn't know I had the family knives on me, was because one day, one of the kids rolled up and said, yo, I see where your mom began off at. I see where your dad began off at. He said, you better be careful. And from then, wherever we went as a family, whether it's food shopping to the movies, wherever, I had that with me. Because one day we passed by a group of guys who were like, yo. And I was like to myself, if it's going to go down, I'm going to defend my family to the death. That's me. That's just me. And my father grew me up that way because one last story about fighting and all this other craziness. One night, my dad was coming home from work. It was payday. You know how some dudes from the hood, they scope you out and they kind of like know your pattern. So one night as he's coming back from drinking with the boys and chilling, like 3 guys surrounded him, put a gun to his head, said, yo, give us your money. Gave them money, and then they said, yo, the keys to the car. Because he had a black Dodge Monocle, a 78 or 81 Dodge Monocle. Beautiful, because it was decommissioned as a police car, and we picked it up at the lot. And what made this car special, one day when he was looking for a car, my dad, he asked my sister and I, which car do you guys want us to drive? My sister and I were like little teenagers, and he allowed my sister and I to pick that car. If that wasn't back in 82, I was 11. My sister's 4 years younger, so she was 7 years old. And we picked that car. My dad paid for the car. 2269 AJA, that was the license plate. Never forget it. So the guys, hit my dad in the head with the gun. And guy went to pull the trigger and he heard click because my dad threw the keys to the car. So when that happened, they got angry. One guy went for the key, other guy hit dad in the head, put the gun to the head and pulled the trigger, but the gun just clicked. That was on Thursday night. So dad comes home, has a little bruise and whatever have you, and he borrows a friend's car because he has to take my mom to work that Saturday and Sunday. And also he has to go to work Friday. I can't remember if he stayed home to do the police report, but I do remember Saturday we used his friend's car. And then Sunday, we used his friend's car to pick my mom up from work. She worked from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So as we're coming down, and this time we took a different route to get home. It just happened, took a different route. We came all the way down Northern Avenue. And I think my dad was looking for his car in the area where he was robbed at. So we're coming down all the way Northern Avenue and we get to President Street. This is in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And as my dad's driving, we're driving on the left-hand side because back then it was a 2-lane Northern Avenue used to be. And right there on President Street, right there at the light, like gold, my dad's car. My dad, like a police officer, blocked the intersection. Boom. He went to jump out the car. He went to grab a crowbar. I went out behind him because that's just the way I am. Because my dad grew me up to say, "Hey, you're good." So
now you're still 14 at this time, if I'm not mistaken.
When this happened, 13, 14 years old.
13, 14. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad always trained me that when he comes home and if he falls asleep, he says, "You're in charge of the house." So that's the way that was in my mind from the time I was a little boy. So my dad got out to go and confront those 3 guys. And I ran out behind him. My mom called me back. Like, no, don't go. In my mind, like, Mom, it's going to be like 3-on-1. The way my dad is, he walked off that crowbar. It was summertime. And the guys and my dad was super pissed off. The guys had the windows rolled down and the air conditioner on. So my dad was like, yo, you're killing the gas, So my dad reached right inside the car, took the keys out of the ignition. The 3 guys ran out, one out of the driver's seat, one out of the passenger, and one in the back. And they all went 3 different ways. And it looked like a police scene there. And my dad's just checking the car and everything. He's like, come back here. So they all ran. And he's like, yo, they don't have their gun today. That's why they ran. You know what I'm saying? A man with a crowbar, but I guess they didn't expect that either.
Oh, your dad sounded gangster because this man reached into the car window, turned the car off, and they were like, "Hey, yo, like we just pistol whipped him like last week, and you gonna reach his arm in?" Oh yeah, they knew better. They knew what time it was. That's what happened.
So me growing up that way, my dad drove the car home. My mom, she had her license, so she drove the car in the other car that we were in home. My dad went to tell the police, hey, listen, we got the car back, whatever. So they won't stop and say, hey, this car's stolen. Hey, I'm the owner, you know. But that's the way I grew up as a boy. And justice has always been in me. I come from a family where we have lawyers, judges. My great uncle, Elliot Belgrave, he stood in for the prime minister back in 2012, 2013 in Barbados when he was ill. My great uncle, Elliot Belgrave, was a Supreme Court justice. My grandfather on my father's side, he's Irish. So he was also what they call in the English system a magistrate, which is still a Supreme Court justice. So if there's DNA in me that make me crave justice per se and to stand up for people, that is who I am inside. And if I wasn't law enforcement, if I wasn't in the medical field, I definitely would have been in law enforcement. But my uncle, I have two uncles who are lawyers. One uncle told my dad, don't let him go into law enforcement. If he want to change the system, let him become a judge, you know, or a lawyer to help change the system.
Okay. And you said, I remember you mentioned this last week. You used to work, you said you were in the medical field. And one of the things that we were talking about, you were saying you could see the difference of interaction when you were in, like, I think you said, like, as an EMT in the back of the ambulance, and then you saw firsthand experience, like how officers would act around, like, you know, people that look like you and me, like black and brown people that are in compromising situations and stuff. And so one of the things that I touched on at one of these protests I was leading, and I was talking about how racism does not just play into like police interactions, but like within like, you know, with doctors, paramedics, EMTs, everything like that. I have a story of a brother of mine that he was born on the day his mother died. You know what I'm saying?
My God.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like she struggled with like, you know, drug, you know, substance abuse and everything like that. You know, we all, I myself, as you know, celebrated 9 years of sobriety from alcohol 2 weeks ago. But it was I want to say Washington Heights is where they were living at the time, apparently, when she was pregnant with him. And he was saying that his uncle told him when he got older. He didn't tell him until like last year though, because he never knew his mom. But he was saying like when the paramedics showed up, because she like OD'd, and they were like, it's just another junkie. But then the uncle had to let him know, like, she's pregnant. You know what I'm saying? And then they were like, well, the baby may not even make it anyway. You know what I mean? Like the posture and the urgency to save this woman and this kid was just not there. And ever since like he found this to be truth to him, he's like, he was telling me before I like went out there one day, he said, if you think it's just the cops, you got it all wrong. Right. And I was curious if you have any of your own, like you said, you've seen like how the police interact, but do you have any of your own stories when you see how people interact with people that look like you and me in those compromising situations, whether it's with the EMTs, doctors, ambulance, you know, in first response cases like that? I don't know if you had any experiences that you wanted to share today.
Yeah. I want to read a verse to that.
Okay.
It comes from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 15. And it says, do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. I've seen a lot of that in two hospitals I worked at, where nurses have treated individuals based on color and appearance. And, you know, you just never know who you're speaking to. I've always treated a person, whether they're homeless or a dignified, apparently rich person, the same. There is no difference to me. Even if you were a doctor, I'm going to treat you the same way I would treat the older lady in the bed next to you or whatever have you. I'm not going to treat you any more special or go running for anything. That's just who I always was, and I was criticized for that. But it's funny. There was a nurse, and this is the point I want to bring out, because when we're as healthcare professionals, we have the power of knowledge. So we know that, hey, if I was cutting chicken and I cut my hand, I know what to do. I have peroxide, Benadine, cling wrap, bandage, keep it up, check it every 2 days, every day, make sure it's not turning green, blue, or yellow, and let it mend on its own, depending on the size of the gash. The regular person, I just cut my hand, I'm going to go to the hospital. And a lot of times when a nurse or a practitioner sees that, oh my God, you came to the hospital for this? They don't have the power of that medical knowledge. We do. We can assess our own selves. And many times healthcare professionals diagnose their own selves and say the worst patient is a medical professional, because we're telling you how to treat us, and you're not giving the doctor an opportunity to assess you. You're saying, oh, this is it. Here goes my blood pressure, my blood sugar. Like, okay, cool. You did all that before you came here, but I still have to do that here and document what it is here. Going back to lay people, they don't know. And what was very commonplace, and I think last year changed a lot of people's posture who work in healthcare, emergency medical care, is that what was practiced behind the desk is we would criticize them among each other. Can you believe he came with a little cut? It's no longer than my pinky. Oh, can you believe they're wasting our taxpayer dollars, because a lot of them were on government assistance. So the idea is they're wasting money to come to check out something. But again, they don't have the power and knowledge to know, if I cut myself, is this cut deep enough to warrant a hospital stay? Or hospital visit. They may not have peroxide at home. They may not have Betadine. Because I'm a medical person, almost like every medical person, and especially first responders and immediate care, we all have all of that. I have a bag full of all that stuff for both here and if I can help someone outside my home. And that's just something most medical people practice. So I've seen that. Now, the adverse to that brings many of us down to being human. There was one of our nurses. She had took her 15-year-old daughter, her husband, and her son. They went white water rafting somewhere. And what happened was, as they were white water rafting, the nurse, she and her husband was in one raft, and her daughter and someone else was in another raft. The daughter's raft tipped over or capsized. So when everyone got out the boat to get back into the raft, the daughter's the only one who did not show up. What happened was, the daughter, when she went to stand up, one of her feet got trapped in between two rocks. Now the river is running very rough because you're white water rafting, and she cannot keep her balance. She's falling down. So now she's taking in water. That nurse, who's an emergency nurse, now was in the place of an everyday person watching their loved one die in front of them. Her daughter was drowning. People came into the water to try and loose her foot from in between the rocks. It took almost 11 minutes. By that time, they're doing CPR and all this stuff. She don't have a pulse, no response. And where they're located, they called in for a airlift so she could be medevaced to the hospital. Helicopter comes, paramedics come off, and they roll her into the air ambulance. The nurse, being a mother, in her bathing suit and everything, goes to get on the helicopter. The paramedic stops and said, no, you're going to have to drive to XYZ hospital. It's like an hour away. You meet us in the emergency room, and the doctor will come out and get you, etc. She said, but I'm a nurse. I'm from New York City. And the paramedic responded, You're not a nurse here in this state, so you'll have to drive. For her, she realized, wow, this is how I, as a nurse, treat the patients who come into my hospital. When she got to the hospital, she waited in the waiting area for a significant amount of time for a doctor to come and tell her the condition of her daughter. Her daughter survived. The benefit to that was when she came back from that vacation, she became the best nurse we had on that night shift. She was more empathetic towards people, and she didn't partake in the criticism of, oh, my pinky was blue from like 2 weeks ago. I just want to know what happened now. And it was just the mannerism of the habit of hospital people, especially, to criticize. Oh, 2 weeks later, what makes one more day? But she learned. She said, what's your name? You've been here for like 2 hours just for pinky. Let me speak to a doctor on your behalf. And that's what nurses are supposed to do. They're supposed to advocate for the patient, even if it is 2 o'clock in the morning. People don't come to the hospital 2 o'clock in the morning just to knock around. Sometimes they come there because there's a serious issue. No one gets up and say, oh, I'm going to go to the hospital and just chill out with the staff at 2 o'clock in the morning. No, if I'm there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it has to be something for real. Coming off of work, take care of the kids, make sure the homework is done, wait for the significant other to come home, and then I'm running to the hospital. And because a lot of us as healthcare workers don't put ourselves in their shoes immediately, that's why they become very callous. One other story, even lending to the EMTs. I was a CPR trainer at one point, and we had a big class. And these are guys who are coming in to renew their CPR certificate. You do that every 2 years in New York City.
Gotcha.
And one guy, I knew him very loosely. He worked in East New York, Brownsville. Out there in East New York, Brownsville, there's constant shootings and constant death. After a while, people turn themselves off. They turn off the empathetic part of them. So as we're doing the CPR and the mannequins, I see him doing it wrong. So I say, hey, my friend, it's like this. He's like, yeah, I know. I've been doing this for 18 years. So I say, that's cool, but I have to see you do it correctly in order to pass you. Yeah. Okay, man, just go somewhere. I work in East New York. I do this every day. So he blew me off. So I went to my senior and I told her, I said, hey, listen, this guy just blew me off, So she's okay, I'll take care of it. So she walked over and she's observed him doing the CPR and he did it wrong again. So she intervened, said, hey, you're supposed to go like this. Yeah. I've been doing this before you were born. And So she looked at him. So she goes to the director to get him involved. And he didn't know who the director was. So he tells the director the same thing. The director I know of EMS services, he's the most chill guy, humorous all the way, 100%. He made this man like red like a tomato. He said, come here with me. I'm not going to give you a CPR card if you cannot demonstrate to me that you could do CPR. It's about saving lives. It's not about how burned out you are. And if you're burned out, maybe you should find a new profession. Because if you arrive to my grandmother's house and I see that you're doing CPR wrong, I'm going to kick you in your face. You get over there to that man again. And that's the first time I ever heard that dude use strong language. So he was pissed. And we got him to do the CPR the right way. The long story short is that sometimes if you're working in an area too long that have a lot of trauma, you can become desensitized. But you do that to protect yourself so you don't suffer burnout. If you've been there for 18 years, then you have seniority to say, hey, listen, can I be transferred to a different area? I'm kind of feeling kind of burned out. Give me like a month off from this high taxing area, You can do that. Because the hospital I worked in, we ran 3 different ambulances. One in the high crime area, one in the very slow area, and the other one in a very moderate area. So if the guys who were in the high crime area where things happen, they could request a break, or they'll do switching. You can do that. Me, I was a volunteer EMT for 6 years. And for me, it's just the way my mind thinks. I couldn't wait to get the trauma because that's where I excel in, and I give that care. I reassure the person you're going to be okay. I let them know when you get to the hospital, this is what you can expect. Even the family members, I want them through the process. So when they get there, there will be no misstep, no miscommunication between them, security, the nurse, and then the doctor ultimately in that fashion. So I'll let them know and just ask security, when is visiting hours? When can I call to find out if they stabilize my loved one? And then you ask the doctor or the nurse very kindly, could I get 3 minutes just to give them a once over and let them know that I'm here to put them at ease? And many times a lot of nurses say, sure, come on in, because we need you to give us further information. So I kind of like coach them so this way they can, it's like me being the gatekeeper and I'm giving them the key so they can have free reign and understand how to conduct themselves. Because I understand the way and personalities of the people I work with. And I understand the industry, and yeah, that's just the way it is, bro. But I would say right now in this climate that I think a lot of nurses and first responders, the criticism we used to give, especially in 2020 or before 2020, changed as a lot of nurses, first responders, PD, firefighters found themselves the target of the invisible enemy, COVID. And a lot of them were humbled because I know more than 20 to 30 people who've passed on from COVID.
About just from pastors or like people that worked within the medical field?
Within the medical field, doctors.
I said pastors. I meant patients.
Yeah.
Burnt out. You know me, I've been running meetings all day, but yeah.
No, first responders, police officers, EMTs, doctors, nurses. One of the first people I saw that I knew, and I'll just give homage to his name, Anthony Causey. I went to school with him at Lafayette High School in Brooklyn. And back in those days, he was one of the humorous guys, and he's the one who took me in to teach me how to do street hockey. So as a black guy back in those days in 1987, 1988, he took me in like, color didn't matter to him. He showed me how to play street hockey. I was playing street hockey with a lot back then, Bensonhurst, where Lafayette was located, was filled with a lot of Italians. And it's like, oh, who's this kid? And he said, oh, this is my classmate. His name is Rudy. And right away, I played like maybe 2 games of street hockey. And they're like, yo, you're pretty good at this. And like, and of course, back then, like, oh, you don't play basketball? I said, no, I'm not really a basketball person. But the reason why I took on to street hockey, because the way my dad exposed my sister and I, we were exposed to everything, every sport. If you ask me, when it comes to Olympics, I love the winter sports more than the summer. Because my sister and I, we enjoy like curling, speed skating, what's that, bobsledding, especially that one. And that was our thing. Baseball, football. Back in the day, we used to have Crash Derby, the cars, stuff like that. So we were into everything. But when different. Yeah. Back then, TV was free, not like today. But when I saw that he was the first one I saw passed away, he worked for the New York Post as a sports photographer. And I saw him. I said, no, not him. I said, holy smoke. And then that was in April of last year. And then I just started looking. And then all the names of all the EMTs. Another one, Idris Bey. He was an EMT instructor. When I first met him, I was just working behind the desk as a ER clerk. When I became an EMT, I trained a class with him. You want to pick the brains of those kind of people because they give you so much great insight into life. And, just a whole slew of people. So I think what we saw last year with now the first responders and the nurses working critical care in the ER, they were looking for empathy. And we saw in a lot of videos like, oh, I'm wearing the mask, leave an imprint under my eyes, and I'm working long hours, and I'm always on my feet, and you don't know if you're going to die next, and I can't go home to my family. And from the people of, oh, well, you're here at 2 o'clock in the morning, they went to, please pray for us. My point is sometimes, disaster changes people. It changes people. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the worse, depending on who you are. I saw where before the pandemic, a nurse who had her daughter 15 years old, and she could not help her daughter, and then being told by the paramedics who airlifted her out, you have to drive there. She felt like one of the regular people. She could not use her nursing powers in another state to say, I'm a nurse, let me on this helicopter. This is not television. But when she went back to the hospital, she became the best nurse we had on the night shift. And she maintained that. She maintained that until I left the hospital. She maintained a very good behavior, lack of sarcasm. She did not participate in the sarcasm with the other nurses. And she started to distance herself and just be with her thoughts because she realized we are here for the people. We don't know how a person arrives to the condition that they're in, but that's not their full story because we don't know when they get on the road of recovery. Will we be there to see it and cheer them on? You know what I'm saying? So whether it's a crackhead, whether it's a, and I don't even like to use that word, a crackhead. If it's a person struggling with an addiction, any of us can have an addiction. Overeating is an addiction. You know what I'm saying? Swiping your phone every morning when you get up. Every time you hear your phone vibrate, that's an addiction. So an addiction of maybe putting some kind of substance in your body doesn't make that person less deserving of proper care. And that's something we learn in EMT school. But, sometimes people have a certain way of being judgmental. And I do hope that during this crisis that we're in, that people say, hey, tomorrow that could be me on the gurney. I would like someone to give me sympathy.
So that's one that's powerful. I think a lot. I think we all, I think what the funny thing was how 2020 went, like Kobe passed away. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I think everybody realized everybody realized how fragile humanity is, I would say. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And we'll get into kind of like what happened last summer and everything. But one thing I really want to pick your brain about, because like I said, you did like a little drive-by gym stories last week on the podcast. The Black Panthers at, what did you say, 16 or 17, you were trying to join the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers at, I think, was it 16 or 17? Correct me if I'm wrong.
This thing happened in 1986, so I just turned 16.
Okay, if you don't mind getting into that, unless there's any statute of limitations you don't want to talk about and you need your lawyer present, tell us a little bit about what provoked you or compelled you to even, like, what was it that made you want to like get in that or get in the fight with that, if that makes any sense?
Right. December 20th, 1986. There were 3 young men who were driving through Queens, and their car broke down. It was in Howard Beach, Queens. They went to the pizza shop to get some pizza and also to call for a tow truck. They had a verbal exchange with some 3 or 4 white guys, and those white guys went to get like a mob of like 15 to 20. Back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, it was considered common. Like when you watch a lot of these Black history movies, as well as like in the 60s, where a Black person's walking home and like 3 or 4 or 5 guys roll up on him in a pickup truck and just beat him up with baseball bats and stuff like that. So that kind of thing continued on even into the 80s. It was very hurtful when these three black men try to run for their lives, and these are older black men too. They were older. The guys who attacked them were in their teens to their 20s, and these are older black men who were family men, in their 30s and 40s. And one man, he ran for his life, and he ran into a freeway of oncoming traffic to escape the mob. Consequently to that, he was hit by a vehicle and he was killed. I remember they got one or two people. And the one thing within the Black experience, if a person gets arrested, that's not the end all. It's like now they have to go to trial. The jurors have to find, based on the facts they're presented, that this was a biased crime. Back in the day, that's how they used to call it, a biased crime, racially motivated. Were they targeted because they were Black, or because of that exchange of words led to anger, and then a mob of 4 turned into a mob of 20? So I remember back then, because it was happening so often, Black guy get punched in the face by 4 or 5 white people. And that was just commonplace in New York City. And I'm pretty much sure much of America. So I remember one day saying to myself, wow, this is crazy. And there was a gentleman I met, and I heard him talking to another older gentleman about somehow, the Black Panthers chapter in Long Island. So I said, excuse me, sir. I just ran off and said, listen, I'm tired of Black people being beat up. I want to do something about it. I want to be part of the cause, just like Hugh Newton, and to bring justice to us so we don't have to get murdered in the street by white people anymore. And he asked me, young fella, how old are you? I said, I'm 16 years old. And he's like, brother, you have to be 21 to fire a firearm, and to have license and stuff. He's in New York City back then. So I said, whatever I said, but he said, if you keep that same energy that you have now to 21, then you could come and see us. Back then in my 16-year-old mind, I was just saying, wow, what could I do to help my race of people from being killed just because of the color of our skin? That's the way I interpret it. Because on the 6 o'clock news, that's what I was seeing all the time. Angry mob attack Black transit worker. There's one that happened near Coney Island. 2 Black transit workers were just chilling, getting something to eat, and they were confronted by an angry white mob. And it's like, why? And they're wearing uniform. They're wearing transit uniforms. It's like, you figure if I'm wearing my uniform, I won't get attacked. I'm not wearing a hoodie or whatever, but that's all they were doing. They were just working in the neighborhood they're assigned to, which happened to be predominantly white, and they were beaten up. And that was one of those things that was scary back then. And when I look at it now, from where we went from 40 years ago to being chased down the block by an angry white mob, it went from that to police brutality, where I'll beat you up and kick you and beat you up in the car, to now you have a confrontation or a experience of an officer, and the first thing that might be drawn is a gun. It's no more billy clubs and nightsticks anymore. Now it's bullets. And it is frightening for us to be Black in America, because we're wondering, I'm a good citizen. To give you an idea of how a law enforcement officer thinks, you and I are law enforcement officers. We're called to a scene because someone called and said, hey, there's a Black guy on the corner with a hoodie on. He's been there for like 20 minutes just looking at his phone. I don't know if he's taking pictures. You and I get dispatched to that person. We see the description of the person, so he fits the description. We come up to him and say, excuse me, sir, what are you doing here? We got to call someone matching description. Could we see some ID? Based on that one question, there's no indication, and I'm going to bring this part up because with the George Floyd situation, everyone kept bringing up, but he was on drugs, and he had a rap sheet, and he did this, and he did that. But when you and I encounter that person that first time, you and I have no idea what they're into. We don't know if they're a drug addict. We don't know if they're in a music class, waiting for their music teacher to pick them up. We don't know. Right. So we can't pass immediate judgment. I'll call in John Doe 123 Mockingbird Lane. Can you give me a status on this guy? Come back. He's clean. We don't have him in the system. Blah blah blah. From there now, all one of us have to do is ask the young man, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I'm waiting for my music teacher. He says he's going to pick me up at 4:30. It's now 4:45. I was texting him. He said he's in traffic. Give him an extra 15 minutes. Okay, young man, that's cool. The reason why we came is because someone saw you and they were concerned about what you're doing here at the street corner for such a long time. So you have a nice day. Where in that conversation does a gun have to be drawn and a young man is on the ground with 4 bullets in his chest and an ambulance is being called to the scene? Sometimes the ambulance is not called to the scene immediately. The sergeant is called first so he can see, okay, yeah, this person needs an ambulance. EMS teaches us from the minute of discovery of a person injured, shot, or their circulation system has stopped, the clock starts ticking. It takes 4 to 7 minutes to dispatch us. 4 to 7 minutes to dispatch EMS, depending on where we're coming from. To get that sergeant for, hey, my gun was discharged. I have a person down.
See, that already, that language bothers me because he says my language was discharged, not I discharged my weapon.
I fired my weapons.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's the I always tell people, and like I even like, because me, I tell you this all the time. Like I go to like different churches and I speak to people and I let them know that certain language is the language of the oppressor and gives you an out. You know what I'm saying? Like earlier you were telling me there is no try. Either you do or you don't. You know what I'm saying? And for him to just say, "Oh, my weapon was discharged." Well, who discharged it? Because last time I checked, guns don't got legs and arms. You know what I'm saying? But continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the difference, and the language also constitutes the urgency of the sergeant's arrival. If my gun was discharged, it could have discharged in my holster, could have discharged as I've taken out, and I just want to cover myself in case someone got hit or there's damage to an infrastructure. Versus, we have shots fired at this location. Male, black, down, injured. Please send the bus. The bus is the EMS. At the same time, the sergeant is going to come there because you will call dispatch and say, requesting a sergeant at this location. It shouldn't be, I need a sergeant at this location, and let him decide, do we call an ambulance? In your human brain, and not even that, through your training, you realize that nice little grain of bullet can cause a lot of destruction to change a person's life. You're trained that. That's why you're careful as to when to draw your weapon and when to pull the trigger. That's all part of the training in the academy. When it comes to firearm discipline, they all go through it. So when you say your gun was discharged, the sergeant said, okay, so that's not so urgent. He would have to ask, so did anyone get injured? Oh yeah, a male was shot. Okay, a male was shot. Where was he shot? Look at how much precious time is running because the officer could not say, hey,
that's like a 20-second exchange right there.
Right. And then this back and forth over the radio. Hey, come again, repeat, 10-5, 10-5. And then you go through, and now the sergeant have to determine, oh, wow, he's not breathing, call EMS. By the time EMS get there, 9 minutes have passed. The brain starts to deteriorate after 7, after 5 minutes. You can start to have, we can't go without air more than 3 minutes before the brain cells start to die. That's why we have something called the golden hour between when we arrive at the scene and find that person in that condition, and then to get them to immediate help. It's called the golden hour. We as EMS are literally racing death. the Grim Reaper to the hospital. So that put us in that position. Now, depending on who you are as an EMT and what you hear the officer say, you may judge the person. Oh, well, I guess he deserved it. Give you a quick story. One night, because I worked the nighttime shift, was from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. And it was maybe the weekend. It was the weekend. And we had a young man, Hispanic, who came in, and he was riddled with holes, like 18, 21 shots, riddled from his jaw on down to his crotch.
Jesus.
That reminds me of I think it was actually 16 shots. Laquan McDonald that was killed in Chicago years ago. That's awful,
right,
man.
So this guy came in, we did CPR, we did everything. And after that, we the nurses wash his body because, he was a nice looking guy, very handsome guy. And the doctors count all the bullet holes and we turn him over. And we saw that he was shot this way, like trying to run. So he got shot in the back also. So he got maybe 11 here, 11 back there, and he succumbed to his wounds. After they wash his body and everything, what we do is we report it to NYPD. The family was coming in also because we found ID to alert the family. And this was the first time I ever saw, because it was a quiet day in the ER, so they had time. So they sponge his body, wipe off all the blood and everything, so he could be presentable to the family. So we gave him dignity. When the detectives came in, they're like, "Oh, finally got him. This is that guy who's a mob boss or whatever. Oh, finally got him. Bushwick is a little safer today."
Wow.
For us, as trying to save a life, we have no idea what he did. For us, we're trying to save a life.
Not important.
Right. When they came in, for them, it's like, good, you guys got him. For us, we didn't know how to feel. Yes, the criminal is off the street. However, if you catch him and let him go through the due process, which our country promises us, due process, and let you be judged by the evidence presented, and let your 12 peers, a jury of 12, come to a decision of, well, this person is guilty or innocent. That's what's supposed to happen. Not the cops being the judge, jury, and then the executioner, and then celebrating, and that's what makes it different. When you see all these things happening to Black and brown people, and people don't quite understand, because when we hear unarmed Black person shot, or in this case of Mr. Toledo, who was shot in Chicago, we're just unarmed person shot by cops, by white cops. And then our minds were so conditioned, oh, well, he had to be doing something, because we get just that 2 seconds of news to formulate a whole judgment on a person. Right. And then when further information come out weeks later or months later, they're like, oh, wow, so then why did he get killed? What he got shot for? And we're not understanding why is it that, it's funny. I mean, you can look at FBI reports, and this is what Black people are concerned about. If I carjack someone, or if I just steal a car and the cops chase me and I have no weapons, there's no reason to shoot me. Conversely, if my white counterpart steals a car, and I give you guys a story, I think everyone knows about this back in, 2014, maybe 2012, somewhere in the Midwest, there was a white escapee. And I always tell people this story for a reason. There was a white escapee from prison break. He stole a car. He dragged someone out of their car. I can't remember if he shot them and if they were injured or killed. But the police and the deputies had enough information to know that he is armed and dangerous. He was confronted by 2 white deputies who are not here on this planet anymore, because they decided, even though he's armed and dangerous, hey, bro, come on, brother, we don't have to do this. And he's like, I ain't going back to prison. Clack, clack, clack. Now they're not here on the planet because when people hear us talking about white privilege, that's what we're talking about. A black person with no gun, no nothing, just gets shot down, and a white person gets the opportunity to run away and live another day for doing the similar crime. Mm-hmm. And there's something about our skin that puts it in the psyche of white officers that we don't deserve to live. You know, yes.
This is a choice that we made to be put in this situation.
Right. Yeah, it's a social issue that we're dealing with. We didn't ask to be raised poor. We didn't ask for racism to continue after the Civil War. There have been so many things done to our race to keep us down that when we resiliently respond back and continue to thrive, it's almost like, damn, so what else can we do to them to get them down? I mean, when you talk about the Tuskegee experiment, and then people now looking at the V situation, they go hand in hand. Because people won't be afraid of the V if they won't think, well, you know, the Tuskegee experiment happened, and some other experiments happened that we are not fully aware of. I think there was one in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Now, and this is in the 2000s. Something happened in Puerto Rico in the 2000s. You know, my Spanish listeners can stand up and say, yeah, they gave chlamydia or something to the women.
Yes, they did.
You know, and this is in the 2000s.
Auntie over there, like coaching. What is my aunt's hair looking like? Because I know she didn't want to show Black America her crown the other day. How we doing over there, Queen? Like, you over here coaching and stuff. You know, you could have pulled up a chair next to Unc. It would have been an issue at all.
She's like, Wakanda forever.
That's funny.
Yeah, but
so I have a kind of an interesting question. I ask everybody this question, especially that's like within our community. So obviously, you know that you're Black, like just by looking at it. But what age was it, or was it a certain circumstance that happened that you understood what that meant to be a Black man in America? Like for me, for instance, I was whistling around one of my family members. I was telling, matter of fact, she over here right now. Remember Key that was on the podcast with us last Thursday? Light skinned sister from the with the curls.
Yeah.
She had the nice shiny curls from Illinois last week. But I was telling her, like, you know, one of my people was like, hey, don't you be whistling around white folks. You'll end up like your cousin Emmett. And I'm like, who the hell is Emmett? You know what I'm saying? I didn't realize he was talking about Emmett Till. And I was like, and for all I know, I mean, like, my man could have been, when I say my man, my family member could have been drunk when he told me this, but he still told me this. It was just like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But what was it like? When was it in your life, I guess? And I mean, well, you were born in America, right? I remember you said that your people are from Barbados, right? But you were born in America.
Yes.
So when was it that you realized like what it meant to be a Black man in America? Like age? Was there something that happened that I guess like the question I'm asking, and if it was in your childhood, what was that moment when you realized that you couldn't be a normal kid anymore? Like, break that down for me.
So 2 different years and 2 different decades. I was 6 years old, coming home from school, got home around 3:30, just in time back then for Roots to be shown, the miniseries, in 1977. And I watched the miniseries. I did not watch the last one. I came home every day watching it, and I said, wow, is this what happened to people who look like me, is what I remembered. And then what happened is, watching that, and then watching the news, and then watching every time, oh, we're looking for a Black male who's a rapist and blah, blah, blah. And my 6-year-old brain said, wow, is that why they had us enslaved, because we're bad people? I started to notice that then. I was still processing. Whenever Eyes on the Prize came out with their miniseries back in the 80s, I used to watch that because that was a choice. You know, funny enough, black and white issues were never ever discussed in my household. Like never. My father never mentioned that. My mother never mentioned that. My grandfather never mentioned it. No one complained about they were held back from a promotion. No one ever complained about they were pulled over by the cops. In fact, my dad was pulled over by the cops twice drunk, and they dropped him home. You know, and you figure, okay, how come he survived?
Your father was very light.
True, my dad was very light skinned.
You were looking at that as he was the anomaly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and if it won't touch him, well, this sounds more assumptuous. Because it didn't touch him, maybe you thought to yourself, like, it wouldn't touch me because it didn't happen to him, if that makes sense.
Well, no, the reason I bring that up is because, like, there wasn't any kind of race brought into the home. So for me watching that miniseries, I never asked mom and dad about slavery. I watched it there, and then I saw maybe one day Gone with the Wind, because my mom used to like to watch those old movies. So then I said, wow. And then I used to watch a lot of other shows, Shirley Temple, and some other black and white shows. I said, wow, all the black people doing this, they're not doing no prestigious type of jobs. They're the maid, the butler, the driver, the cleaning person, the shoe shine person. So my little six-year-old brain, until I got to whenever Eyes on the Prize was shown on TV, PBS, that's when it hit me that I am a black person. They were showing that miniseries and how the mistreatment of blacks throughout history up until the civil rights era and much of the 70s. I remember one day seeing in that same show, they showed, I think, a little black girl or boy, very dark skin. He was in the bathtub, or she was in the bathtub trying to rub off the black. I remember one time taking a bath because, my parents let us take a bath on our own. And I snuck the comet from out of the kitchen. And that particular time, I kind of like closed the door a little bit because we never closed doors in my home. And I'm in the bathtub and I just take the comet trying to rub the dark skin off what I consider dark skin off myself, saying maybe if I turn white, I'll be light more. And I don't know if I got caught or whatever, but I remember sitting down in the bathtub just thinking, wow, God, why do you make me like this if people are going to hate me? And I think what happened is, if I did that back then, 1977 to 1981, 82, whenever the show Eyes on the Prize on PBS, imagine today's black child questioning their very existence. And it's, I go back to what Jay-Z said back in Hard Knocks Life. Instead of treats, we get tricks. You know what I'm saying? And no one can dispute that. That's not him just trying to be cool with lyrics, but he's just saying, yo, this is what it is. This is what the black experience is for many of us. We can't perpetuate one dude or one family who made it out of Compton and went to Beverly Hills, such as the Banks family from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and say, oh, well, if they could do it, you can do it too. There's so many barriers for a lot of people. Not everyone has a Serena and a what's her name? The Williams, Venus Williams story. Not a lot of people have a Mike Tyson story. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them do. A lot of them have that kind of story. And it's not a matter of how greatly educated you are, how wonderful. My uncle, he was a police officer in Barbados in 1978. He came to America 78, 79. And, very well educated. And he went to go for a job in the very same hospital I worked in. I'm going to keep that anonymous. And he went there. This is 1979, 1980-ish. And he was told by the white person who interviewed him, said, Mr. Edwards, I cannot hire you. And my uncle asked him, why not? Because, he's a former law enforcement officer, so he's going to ask. Say, you are overqualified. You will be replacing me. And I'm very sorry. I cannot let that happen. So my uncle now, fresh from off the boat, as they say, from Barbados, and this is his first experience as a Black person in America. When you're outside of America, you hear all these wonderful stories and how you can make it and everything. And many foreigners I work with in the hospitals have said, I don't know what we were thinking when we came over here. I would have been better remaining economically poor, according to the gross domestic product, in my little place in India, Bangladesh, Iran, Iraq, Africa, Cuba, Philippines, all those countries, and maintain a sense of happiness in Burma, than coming here to America and facing all these social obstacles and being in fear if I might lose my nursing license because the white supervisor don't like me. And it's like, wow. So what my uncle did, he told my grandmother, he said, you know what? I have a good idea. I'm going to go to law school. And he told my grandmother, all I need for you to do for me is just cook and iron my shirts. Because when you're in law school, you have to dress as if you're going, to law school. Shirt, tie, jacket, etc. So all I need for you to do is just wash, iron my shirts, and just provide food for me while I'm listening to my lectures. When my parents had separated for a few months, we lived with my uncle and his girlfriend at that time, during that time period that he was in college in law school. And I would hear him 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, listen to his recordings that he recorded the lecturer and then writing down notes and stuff. When he became a lawyer, he realized now he could change the system. It's just one of those things, brother, that happens, and people hear the stories and they figure, oh, well, you're driving a Mercedes, you're driving a Tesla, so you're doing all right. I become a target again. My windows are tinted too much and they can't tell, oh, that has to be a Black guy. Let me pull him over. They don't understand that. They figure that money can get you out of anything. Look at what, more than 10 years ago, Oprah went to go to some store in France or wherever. And
yep, I do remember that. Yep.
Right? There's a rich Black woman and she was told no. It's like, you don't recognize my face? We recognize the color of your skin, but we don't recognize who you are. And she was turned away. And, and whatever happened out of that, the apologies and all this stuff, but still, it's just an experience that we face. And for a lot of white people who don't understand that, I would say to you, especially Christian evangelicals, love your neighbor. Pray for your enemies. Don't just weaponize the police because you figure this guy must be up to no good. A lot of Black and Hispanic people dress the way they do because we're trying to protect ourselves from the thugs in the hood. We wear a hat or a hoodie or a jacket and we're just cooling. And it's also another way of us protecting ourselves from being punked out on the street by another dude. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why we dress that way. We don't have the polos and the khakis and the nice loafers, and because our environment many times don't call for that. You can do that when you're in a beautiful upper middle class neighborhood. But I'll say this, eventually one day we're all going to be on the same playing field. And I think last year you guys kind of got a taste of that. Because I've always said from junior high school or so that the way white society has run to oppress Black people, they're creating the Frankenstein. And I think last year we saw the Frankenstein come out, but it was for a reason. Because it's like when George Floyd got murdered, protocol for police officers says, okay, as long as I handcuff you, okay. If I need to keep you on the ground, I could keep my hand in the blade of your back, your shoulder blades. I'm still controlling you because it's still at the base of the neck. That's how every fighter, MMA or wrestler knows you control the neck. If I put my hand in the top of your back and you're handcuffed, I'm still controlling you. I'm not applying pressure to kill you. So that's the problem that we have. That could have been a white drug addict, and he would have been sit down in the police car, offer water and stuff, and people get to know that won't happen. I one time worked in a Wall Street position, and they hired a guy who had some kind of felony or whatever, and by court order, he had to work and maintain a job. He had to. And how many people we know, I'm a felon or whatever have you, who look like you and I, and they can't get the opportunity. They just
That's
don't.
why I was texting you guys earlier. I had meetings with politicians and everything today. Mm-hmm. And brother, I dressed just like this. It's May the 4th. You understand me? I got my Millennium Falcon shirt on. I got tattoos on my arm and stuff, and I wore my hair out. And I was telling you about the legendary Kicks Day. Hold on real quick. I got you. And I walked into the office wearing Kicks
my
Day.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? And I did, but here's the thing though. I did that intentionally though, because I'm in Baltimore. You understand me? Like I know where I'm from. And when I walk out that building, I talked to a couple of the black kids, couple of the young kings and queens that are out there. They were like, one of them asked me, "Are you a politician?" I'm like, "No." They were like, "Well, why'd you go in that building? You don't look like somebody that's allowed in that building." And I just like I told you guys in that text message, I said, I'm very intentional about going in white spaces to not assimilate myself to whiteness in these spaces, because I don't want the kid in the bathtub to be rubbing Comet across their skin and thinking that their hair's got to be all the way laid down to be a dignified person to talk with these folk that are supposed to be helping them in their community. I've been very intentional, or as I like to say it, over the last 4 to 5 years, I've made it known that I am not your safe friend, if that makes sense. Or I'm like, I want the person that comes behind me to be able to do what I do, whether they're actually a politician or not, to be able to walk into these spaces in these rooms, and then they don't have to feel like, oh, I have to be clean collared, this is that and the third, just for you to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a respecter of persons, so I'm going to talk to the CEO the same way I'm going to talk to the dude that's got that's folding up sandwiches in the kitchen. But I've been very intentional about that, especially since God is putting me in these places, because I want the black kids on the corner to know that success can look like jeans too. You know what I'm saying? Success can look like however you want to rock your hair or whatever you want to do that. Because at the end of the day, poverty and defeat is a mind state, or is a mindset. You know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to be very I did that for them out there on the street. What'd she say? What my sister Eb said? I hate that the standard boils down to look that black people must present in certain spaces in order. Yeah, exactly. Girl, I'm wearing a Millennium Falcon shirt, but I did that intentionally, because why can't a successful person look like me? You know what I mean? I can't take this off, but I could add a few accessories to let people know that, I don't know how to describe it. That excellence can be in a bow tie or a button up short sleeve with some with some gear on and everything like that. And I can roll up to the building, bump in Jay-Z or whatever I need to do to, kind of, just be comfortable in my own skin. Because at the end of the day, y'all want what's in here. Y'all don't want what's on my wrist. This is a G-Shock, whatever. But y'all don't care about what's on my feet. Y'all care about where my feet are putting me into. You know what I'm saying? These Nikes got me into this room. I'm not going to step out of my Nikes now. You know what I mean? And I've been very intentional in that, because at the end of the day, my Lord and Savior wore a robe. It's sweatpants, essentially. I'm not going to, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not going to dissolve myself to blend in with you guys. There's no point. There's just at this point, I think a lot of people, especially people that look like us, we're at that point where we're just like, look, you want this. And you know you're not going to get that in the waiting room. So you can go and talk to the sister with the high ponytail and the Hillary Clinton suit, or you can holler at the sister with 7 piercings in her ear that's got a doctorate, got more degrees than the thermometer. You should take that chance.
I hear that.
For sure.
I wanted to say something to what you just mentioned about dressing. When you walked in there intentionally, you're representing everyday people of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell people, even in the chat right now, when you guys get a chance, just, open up a side tab and go into Google and type in 1933 mobster or gangster. And when you go back and you look at the way they presented themselves, these were cold-blooded killers who dressed up very fine, refined.
You better talk, Uncle.
Okay. They drank the best wine, caviar, had plenty of women. And they were not afraid of the police. Okay, so who's a real killer? What does a killer look like? What does a menace to society look like? Al Capone, Louis Lepke, Buck Alter. Who else? Let me name down these names. Machine Gun Kelly, and not the rapper. John Dillinger. I could go on. Al Capone, Lucky Luciano. I could go on. Johnny Dio Guardia. Cold-blooded killers, dressed dignified like they're going to church. What does a gangster look like? What does a mobster look like? What does a menace to society look like? What does a thug look like? 1933, mobster, Google, images, there you go.
And the funny thing is like I hate, and that's another thing, and I that's why like I'm so big. That's why I didn't care how Auntie would have looked if she would have came on camera. You know what I'm saying? Because you and me were talking about it. You and me talked about this last week. She doesn't have to come on camera. Black woman, you do what you want to do. You don't listen to me. You understand? But I think. And even for me, because like I know, for instance, it's rare for somebody that looks like me to be in these spaces.
Yeah.
Even to like talk with the people in which I talk to. So I'm like, a lot of people are like, "Hey, don't let us down when you're representing us." I'm like, I hear you, but here's the thing though, like. I'm going to carry myself how I carry myself in these spaces. And I'm going to let it be known that you're going to know me for my ethic, regardless of what, or the words I say better than what my hair looked like. You know what I'm saying? And when I get on people, and that's why I started doing this over the last year. Like when people are like, there's no such thing as Eurocentric beauty standards. I said, look up an unprofessional haircut and then look up a professional haircut. Okay. Tell me what Google, and tell me what, I'm serious, and tell me what Google Images shows you. You know what I'm saying? And I was just talking to Sister Key about, me and her were I should have just opened the podcast with her last night, but me and Key were talking about how like, even like, better yet, we said it like this. We're not allowed to enjoy the things that make us without being deemed unprofessional or ugly. But then when our white counterparts do it, they're being artistic and spunky. You know what I'm saying? And what'd she say? Yes, we not doing respect. Yes. I feel that. But we were talking about that. I was saying like, even like, this is kind of funny, and I'm going to say this on the internet. I don't care. This might get me flagged. I don't know. But Key said, you ever notice when white people get dreadlocks, they look like the Grinch's fingers?
Oh, shoot.
I was like, what did you?
You want to hear something funny? I remember a few years ago, I typed in dreadlocks in freaking YouTube on Pinterest or something. And all these white people popped up. I said, wait, what happened to the black sisters? What happened to the black people? When did dreadlocks become, sacred locks? Sacred locks is what they are.
Yeah, that's right. We're destigmatizing them. We
Right.
call them locks. Ain't
Right.
nothing dreadful about that hair. You heard
Right.
me.
And the reason why they were considered dreadlocks, I think it was the Dutch who went to push forward from the southern or the west coast of Africa. And as they got you know how I'm going to be. You know how I'm going to be. I want people to leave here edified, and something they didn't know, they say, wow, I didn't know that. So when the Dutch, I think it was the Dutch, was pushing their way through the Ivory Coast, they went further into the tree line. And what they ran into, remember, the Dutch, the Europeans, they had muskets, they had guns. They were pushed back by what they call the dreaded locks, with their spears, their arrows, their shields, their machetes, and whatever else they had. And they were pushed back. So they couldn't take that part of the Ivory Coast that time. This is where you get the coin phrase of, if you're serious about taking the island, burn the boat. Yeah. So that means you have no turning back. You got to fight or die right there. So the phrase, or the phrase dreadlocks came from them, because they said, oh, the guys of the dreaded locks, they pushed us back. But if you ask the African people, it's a sacred lock, because each lock sometimes have a significance, which is why they may put a little seashell there, or they may put a clamp there. It signifies the growth process and the journey of their life. And a lot of us, we were never given that, because sometimes we were ashamed of being Black or knowing that, or African heritage, because in the Eurocentric society that we're in here in the Western Hemisphere, this is what we were taught in school. So you have to deliberately go and take a African studies class, which is what I did when I went to City College under Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, who's alive today, taught me a lot about myself. At age 19, age 20, I learned to love my Blackness more than I ever did in my life. And it's funny, because I said I come from a colorblind family. I didn't have the experience that many Black people have to say, oh, I was called the N-word or whatever.
No,
but I did. And my wife is
Don't worry, Auntie. We're gonna have you on here later this week. I don't know. So you might, if you need to go get your hair did so you could bless us with your presence, you gonna be on here next week too. Maybe. I don't know. We're gonna work that out. I'll have my people call your people. Continue on.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. Throw that X up. You heard me.
But then Dr. Leonard Jeffries taught me about myself, and I was unashamed to learn my own history. And it's funny, growing up in the 80s, what we were showing about Africa was starving people. What's that song back in the 1980s? We are the world, we are the children. What we saw was Ethiopia starving and places starving. One day when I saw something outside of South Africa, which is considered the most developed place in Africa, an airplane flying out of Africa. I said, wait a second, they have airplanes that go to Africa?
That's messed up.
Blown away. My parents brought me encyclopedias. I was blown away that Africa had roads, they had a monetary system, they had capitals, they had presidents, they had kings, they had queens, that have gold. Not all of it is given to the culinary oppressors. I said, holy smoke. I had no idea. I even got a picture from out of there. And I think I ran to my mom and dad. Look, mommy, look. Africa, they have streets and they have cars and they have airplanes. They don't just have zebras and gazelles and giraffes. And my life was changing right there. And I said, wow, all this time, never knew. And that's why when the climate we're in today is that when Black people are now saying, listen, we're not angry at a white person. I don't want white people to think we're angry at every white person. What we're angry at or disturbed about is the system that says living in New York City, and a lot of New Yorkers can vet this, going to St. Mark's and 3rd Avenue, there's a lot of white kids who could sit down there not too far from NYU University and St. Mark's comic book shop and sit down on the sidewalk where there's plenty of foot traffic and just eat and drink their Starbucks with no one bothering them. No one at all. It's been going on for decades. If I stop, it's like, hey, what's he doing? Oh my God, he's trying to set us up. It's not that. You're not giving me a chance. You're allowing my skin color to dictate something. What if I was to say, well, I'm afraid of every white person because they might be a racist. Not every black person is a thug. Not every black woman is a single mother who's happy
to talk, sir.
To be a single mother. You know, not all of us come from a home run by a single parent. We come from 2-parent homes, some of us. Many of us come from a home where, yes, it did take the village at home to raise a child. A lot of us are enrolled in NYU. Oh, talking about school. Here we go. School system, public school system. What's this? 1985. 1986. I'm in Wingate High School in Crown Heights. To show you how my family structure was, and this is what I want to encourage our black people to be more involved in your child's life and what he's doing academically, being more involved in your niece and nephew's life academically. Get on par with your sister, your brother. Forget whatever little sibling rivalry you have or whatever. Think about tomorrow's future. 1985, 1986, I'm in Wingate High School. We have like a little family get together. All the aunts and uncles and cousins are there, and we're laughing, joking around, And in my heritage, the main question is, as it is in most African cultures, hey, how are you doing in school? I'm like, oh, I got A's and B's. I'm doing good in every class, straight 90s and 100s. Really? What school you go to again? Wingate High School. Oh, that's a low performing school. Of course you can get 90s and 100s. Oh. So my aunt, she asked my mom and dad, hey, they call me Junior. I'm junior to my father, Rudy Senior. Why don't you get Junior to take a citywide entrance exam and get him into a higher performing school? She explained to them how to do that, and I went to my counselor. Remember, public school system is free in New York City. At least back in the 80s it was. So I make an appointment with my counselor, this older lady. She wasn't well suntanned. Yeah. And I told her, hey, listen, I like to take the test to get into like Lafayette or John Dewey, Grady, New Utrecht, one of those high-performing schools. She said, what make you think you need to go there? I see, and she pulled my stuff up on the computer. You're doing great here. Why you want to leave? And I explained to her, said, well, it was suggested to me, I could try one of those other schools. Oh, I need to see your parents' income. I need to know if they're married legally and all this other stuff. So I went home like a diligent black kid doing the right thing. Mom, dad, they want to see your income. They want to see your marriage license, I brought all that the very next day. Oh, your parents make too much money? Oh my God. I don't know. If you leave the school now, you won't be able to get back if it's a mistake. Where you want to leave? And oh my God, your parents, is your mother, are they legally married? Is this a copy or is this the original? All of that just to keep me out of a high-performing school that is free to any New York child. All of that. I forgot what I said. Now I started to stand up for my parents. And this was very unusual for me because I wouldn't stand up to an adult. I said, but isn't New York schools free? Is it public education? She said, yeah, but still, if you go there and it's not for you, you can't come back here. I said, well, that's what me and the family decided we're going to do. Oh, okay, here's the papers. And just, and if it don't work out, you can't come back here. You have to find a new school because we won't accept you back. She stamped it and gave me my approval. One Saturday morning, I took the placement test for Lafayette High School. Lafayette, Brooklyn Tech, and one other. Lafayette accepted me. High performance school, I was truly academically challenged. And I thank God for my Aunt Celeste, who mentioned that to my mom and dad. Long story short, brothers and sisters, if you can get involved in your daughter, your son, your niece, your nephew's life, your little cousin, and help them do better in school. My niece and nephew, it was a 2003, 2004. I lit fire under their butts because they were watching the news and we were trying to hear the news and they were just talking. Like, guys, can you keep it down? They wouldn't stop. Like, oh yeah, this and that. I said, guys, let me ask you a question. You're doing your homework and everything. Where's Iraq? And one of them said, oh, is that in Albany? Right there. I was like, really? From that time, the very next week, my wife and I, we bought maps, we bought academic books, we did everything. And they had personalized homework to do for us. Mm-hmm. Long story short, 2 years later, both of them graduated valedictorian from their class. From their school.
That's right.
Yep. All it took was that. Where's Iraq located? Oh, I think it was, where's Baghdad located? Yeah. Is that in Albany? Like, I said, no way. You see when you need to pay attention to the news and stop, blah, 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 blah. And from there, they learned, got them maps, we got them all these academic books, and they put their mind to it. And they go, oh, Uncle, so where is the capital of this? And where's the capital of that? I'll say, okay. Uncle may not know because Uncle rated his ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and got all my degrees. You have to do that. You know what I'm saying? And they graduated valedictorian from their school. And I encourage us, brothers and sisters, no matter how difficult it may seem, it's worth it. Because their kids start to believe in themselves in spite of what their friends may tell them and what the world may show them. And that's my message to that.
And what I think is beautiful about that, and me and Divinity have expressed it to you guys, the fact that, like, knowing that you guys don't have any children, but you guys take the time to father and mother
Amen.
Different people. I mean, we call you aunt and uncle and stuff like that, but this is missing in our community for sure. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, like, for real, seriously though, like, this is like a lot of our relatives are either dying off. They either the system got in the way, society got in the way, health got in the way, mental health got in the way. You know what I'm saying? It's just beautiful to have, and just to have you guys to come into our lives. Like, you'll talk to us till 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Like, Uncle Rudy, cooler than a fan, roll up with a robe on. He's like, what we talking about? What we talking about over here, young folk? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that's important though, because like we saw, like, for instance, mentioning the Panthers, that was something that white America was threatened of. They were threatened of the Black Panthers being the village, the Black Panthers setting up a free clinic and taking care of their people, the Black Panthers edifying, educating, inspiring the youth. Because as you said it earlier, the youth is our future. And it's just great to see, though you guys are not a father and a mother to people, you still father and mother people regardless of their DNA. And I just think that's beautiful, honestly. Like, amen. It's good to see. It's good to see. Amen. Yeah, man. Alongside them. For real. And I mean, like, we saw that in the Bible, like with I had one of my big brothers, one of my mentors on here over the weekend, David, very early on was like, you come with me, right? And I'm like, ayo, like, I'm like, who is this swole, bald-headed? I'm like, who is this nigga? Like, I was, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes it takes that, I always tell people, especially, like, I love how you challenge your nieces and your nephews, because you knew they were strong, but you know that they couldn't get swole without getting sore. They had to push a little bit heavier weights up here to show that how strong they were. And I think that's amazing. And I'm happy they're able to have that with you guys.
Amen. Amen.
Wow, man. Well, I think wow, we were talking for 2 hours. I didn't even realize that. Good Lord. Like, it didn't even feel like it. I felt like we just started, honestly.
Any more questions? Yeah, I'm ready to take them.
That's funny, man. Man, that's crazy. Wow. I think this is a good way. Honestly, I think this is we got a lot to unpack. I might even watch over this and just be like, I might have missed something. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, like 30 minutes for me.
I just want to say one thing.
Go ahead, brother. Take the mic. Take the screen, matter of fact.
I just want to say something to our people. And I mean the Christian nation as a whole, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, doesn't matter where you're from. I want us to really look at the trending topics that sometimes polarize us or pull us apart. And look in your Bible and ask yourself, okay, not only what would Jesus do, what would he say, but what does the Bible say? Right now, one of the biggest debates with the Senate is, should we have the minimum wage raised to $15 an hour? In many places, $6 and $7 an hour. I'm like, really, that's still a thing in 2021? And ask yourself this question, brothers and sisters. When you look at the word of God addressing poverty, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 9 to 10, tells us very specifically, and this is especially for those of us who are living an opulent lifestyle. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleaning or the remaining of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard a second time, or pick up the grapes that have fallen from the trees. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. Brothers and sisters, when we talk about justice, social justice, understand that's something that even in the book of Habakkuk, if you read the book of Habakkuk went to God and said, hey, listen, he's maybe a minor prophet. He went to God and said, Lord, how much longer are you going to watch injustice and just stand by? How long, Lord, are you going to watch the justice system do crooked things, crooked deals? Brothers and sisters, only just a couple weeks ago, there was a rich young kid driving a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. He don't have the ability to control that car. 15 years old, 16 years old? He crashed into a family and took the lives of two people, a mother and a child. This happened 3 different times. 2 males did it and 1 female. And lives of the other people were taken all the time. The one thing each of these individuals, except for the female who lost control of her car, had in common, they had rich parents who can buy their way out of the justice system. One family is still seeking justice because the father is this rich guy who's friends with the judge. And this is the same thing that God tells us in the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus is still relevant today as it was way back when. It tells us that the problems we had even in the ancient times with the Israelites, we still have them now in 2021. And by speaking out and to have my friend Casper go and to speak to the city council to say, hey, listen, I'm not coming to you dressed in shirt and tie to make you feel comfortable. I want you to see me as I am, because when our ancestors in the 1950s and 60s, during the civil rights era, they wore the shirt and tie and they were still beaten by billy clubs, water hose, and bitten by dogs. So if they didn't get dignity then, let's just throw on a t-shirt, rock our hats, and just go out there, because we're fighting to say, hey, listen, if you say you're a Bible-believing Christian, then do it all the way. Don't make exceptions. Well, I don't like the foreigners coming to my country. The Bible tells you to watch out for the foreigners.
You better talk.
The Bible tells us that. It holds us to that. Paul was told several times, do not forget the poor. Do not forget the poor. Please, Paul, on your journey, do not forget the poor. That's all God is trying to get us to do. Remember, Jesus said, you will always have the poor among you. Let us take in the poor and don't criticize their appearance. Remember, we're born here, so we have that opulent lifestyle and mindset. They're just coming in. Like a stranger coming to your door, welcome them in. Make them feel at home. Get them acclimated to the system so they can do better and contribute to the tax system. If we make it fair for all, guess what? We wouldn't have such a big budgetary deficit. But because we make it obscure to a few, a large minority few, there's a reason why your taxes are going up. It's not because, these people coming in and they're on government welfare. It's not because of that. If there was an ability by the state government, your city council people and your senators, and then everything have to get passed by Congress. If we're now talking about equity, let the people in. We have enough laws about immigration for the last 30, 40 years, and a lot of them have not even been followed. So when you hear about, but they're suffering at the border, they're suffering at the border, ask yourself, why are they not being given amnesty? Ask why they're not being given amnesty. Why? Because they didn't come over on an airplane from the Ukraine, from Russia, from Italy, come on, brothers and sisters, we got to ask the questions. And that's why the social justice movement is important. We're not trying to rebel rouse, but we're trying to bring attention to get your conscience. The Bible says there's a point in time where if you continue in your sin, God's going to turn you over to a reprobate mind because your conscience has been seared as with a hot iron. If you ever burn any clothes while ironing, it gets singed and it can never be repaired. So if you feel there's a problem with taking care of the poor and the most vulnerable and not giving them equity so they won't be a problem or a trouble to you in your neighborhood, then fight for the same thing because we're on the same side. If we suffer, you're suffering too. How? If we remain poor, you remain in fear.
You better talk.
Because then you're worried that I'm going to come and rob you, rob your daughter, or kill your husband. And that's not what we're about. We all want the same thing. If the Constitution says we're all created equal in the eyes of God, and the Bible says we are all made in the image of our Creator, then let us treat each other that way. And let's love, because Jesus said you would know them by their love. And that's one of the fruits of the Spirit. And if you can't do that, brothers and sisters, you need to wash yourself again and ask the Lord for forgiveness and return yourself, stand upright and say, Father, I'm ready to do the work.
And I think what that is instead of trying to make America again, let's make Christians Christ-like again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I don't, and you know me, brother, I don't want to, this sounds kind of ignorant. People that aren't saved and don't have an identity to my spiritual walk, I don't have anything to say to you guys. When I say that, there's nothing I have to say to you because it's like, not that I don't care, but it's like, I can't hold you to a standard you didn't sign up for.
Right.
But my brothers and sisters, this is not jewelry to me. You understand me? Like, this is not jewelry to me. I saw a lot of y'all and still losing y'all victory over Joe, what's this dude's Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, or whatever we call him. Look, y'all, Caesar was never supposed to be our best friend. So I don't really care who the president is. I know what I still got to do at the end of the day. But a lot of the issues that have started in this country, and we won't get into tomorrow because tomorrow is Did the Church Fail the Black Community Part 7? I think it is. Oh yeah, I might have to have you come on. I don't know. You might have to jump in this tomorrow. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think I think what it is, and as my uncle was saying, is stop looking to the people that don't got it all together to get it together. Or as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, stop asking people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and they ain't never been given no boots.
Amen.
It's no different. You know what I'm saying? So
amen.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm tired. I got my Pfizer shot today. I'm like, it takes a lot to look this good. You understand me? I'm gonna go rest up. I'm gonna go put my dog. I'm gonna walk my dog, and I'm probably gonna have to slip him something because there's a storm out here and he's bugging a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you don't know it yet, but you're going to sleep. That oatmeal is going to have something in it.
Okay, I hear that.
But Uncle Rudy, thank you, man. This was great. If Uncle Rudy bless y'all, please let us know in the comment section. And give
it a thumbs up, smash that like button, ring that bell.
Oh, I appreciate that. And also, Uncle Rudy, you don't move too fast now, because I found out you was hiding something from me. You got a YouTube channel. Can you let the public know, Black America, White America, saints and ain'ts, the weirdos and the arrows, know where to find you if they want to get in touch with you or something like that? Where can they find you, brother?
Amen. I'm on YouTube at Rudy Moore Jr. on YouTube. And thank the grace of God, our email is ministry4god7@gmail.com. ministry4god7@gmail.com. And you'll find me there.
And they can just hit you up, huh? You just talk to anybody, huh?
You know what, man? One day I'm going to need several segments to explain the rest of my life.
That's all right. We're gonna have that. I already told y'all. And Auntie, I don't know who you gotta talk to get your crown shine, but you on here, yeah, Auntie, you on here next week or this week. I don't know. If I'm feeling froggy, if you're not doing anything tomorrow and I'm free around lunchtime, don't make me text you. I'll do it. But yeah, yeah, I'm happy you enjoyed it, Eb. I mean, like, and this won't be the last time that Uncle Rudy will be stopping by. The podcast is a revolving door, so it's kind of funny. For those that go to church, my podcast they tend to be a little Pentecostal from time to time. They kind of just go time wise. But yeah, I thought this was good, man.
But I just want to say one thing to the audience. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I want you to know, one of our civil rights leaders said, if there's no struggle, then there's no progress. And the same way, Jesus said, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. Continue to push your plow in the name of Jesus. Be the example, because you and I may be the only example of Christ that many people will ever see. So be that example. Remain encouraged.
I received that. Shoot.
Praise God.
Man, as much as I gotta, as much as I'm out here in these streets with a C, understand me? Thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Once again, I'm going to be back here tomorrow for Did the Church Fail the Black Community Part 7. You know what I'm saying? 7 is the number of completion, if I'm not mistaken. Even though we're going to keep having these conversations until Jesus comes back. So I'm going to keep flipping y'all tables over. I'm going to keep making y'all mad because white fragility is my favorite salad dressing. You understand me? Thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Please be safe. Please love each other. And please learn to smile, learn to love yourself so you can actually have an organic smile. And it's okay to not be okay during this time. Cling on to those that are around you. And if you got a dog, where's this little goofball at? I wasn't kidding. He's right underneath me. But whatever that God is giving you to give you that organic joy, and I'm over here messing with him because he's always happy to see me. You know what I'm saying? But I say that to say that don't lose sight of, you know, in the midst of all this darkness that we're going through and everything like that, focus on the things that light up your world during this time. Whatever that is, whether it's in a conversation, that's an encounter, whether that's an activity or whatever. And for the, you know, for the brothers and sisters, if it's a glass of wine before bed, do what you need to do. Cause y'all already know what I say on here, which y'all, if you gotta smoke, come on here or watch this, go ahead. Drink a glass of wine, do what you need to do. Just don't get naked. And if you're watching this at home and you're naked and you're watching this, I'm concerned. I'm gonna fill you in with a therapist. I'm a little concerned about your everything up here, but that's besides the point. Always remember you are beautiful, blessed, and beloved. What's that other thing I always say? Jesus wasn't white, and raisins don't go on potato salad.